Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, students, parents, and candidates. We will begin with the quote from Franklin D. Roosevelt. Nobody will ever deprive the American people of the right to vote except the American people themselves, and the only way they will do this is by not voting. My name is Brian Anthony Sartuche. I am the Public Relationships Officer for the Starr County Young Voters, a recognized student organization at Starr County, Texas College. And I'll be your Master of Ceremonies for tonight's events. I will now introduce the Roma High School Army JRTC for the presentation of colors. From Rio Grande City High School, we will have Noemi Vela, who will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Noemi. Now we have Pastor Ricardo Peña from the Rio Nova Church from Rio Grande City who will lead us in an invocation.
Good evening. Let us bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening that you have given us to be together in this candidate debate. We thank you for everyone present, for the students, the people, and other government officials. Father, we ask tonight that you can lead us with wisdom and knowledge so that we are able to proceed in this debate with diligence and assertiveness. Help us be precise and correct as we answer each and every question given us today. We pray and bless each candidate and their respective parties and their staff. We also pray that you bless everyone here tonight. I pray in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Now I would like to introduce our moderator. Graduated from Roma High School, in 1994, and enrolled at the University of Texas at Austin to study music. In 1997, he accepted the position of head choir director for Roma Independent School District. He completed his bachelor's degree in music education from the University of Texas Pan American, along with his Texas teacher certification. He obtained a master's degree in the educational leadership from the University of Texas Pan American in 2005 and completed his Texas principal certification. Dr. Guerra was admitted to the Boston University doctoral program in 2006 and obtained his Doctor of Music Arts degree in the spring of 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Adrian Guerra. Tonight, the Starr County Young Voters invited Mr. Omar Escobar and GM Chuy Alvarez for the 229th Judicial District attorney raised to participate in this event. They will now answer the questions we have prepared for them. I will now turn it over to Dr. Adrian Guerra.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, we have a student who will provide the coin toss so we can figure out which candidate will go first. And the way I'm going to do this, to be fair, I'm going to go by alphabetical order, last name. Mr. Alvarez, you get to call heads or tails.
Heads.
Okay? I will verify this, and it is heads. As such, Mr. Alvarez will answer the questions first, followed by Mr. Escobar. I do have a statement before we begin. Welcome to the Roma ISD Performing Arts Center. We are proud to host this event, sponsored by the Starr County Young Voters. A civilized society is defined by various attributes. One of these attributes is the ability of its members to engage in substantive discussions about issues that affect our society, our well-being, and our children. And so I invite everyone here to abide by the rules of etiquette that are required at an event such as this one. For the candidates, I emphasize that it is important that only one person speak at a time. Candidates will be afforded 2 minutes to answer each question. I will try to provide a 10-second warning. At the end, there will be 3 questions from the public. I will not allow any candidate to speak out of turn. Please wait until you are called to answer. In addition, the candidates will provide a 2-minute closing statement at the end of this discussion. For the audience, please keep cell phones silent. Do not use any flash photography. Please be silent and courteous to the rest of the audience members who would like to listen attentively. Please refrain from yelling or booing. The best way for you to express agreement is through applause. The best way for you to show disagreement is by not clapping and simply staying silent. Above all, please remember that we have several high school students in the audience, and we want to instill in them a true sense of decorum and respect. Anyone who insists on not following these simple rules of etiquette will be ejected from the building and not allowed to return at my discretion. There is a time and a place for everything that occurs in our lives. I'm a firm believer in the First Amendment, specifically the freedom of speech and the freedom of expression. And I want everyone in here to feel free to express themselves. Some of you may be asking, how can I believe in free speech and expression and at the same time set such stern rules for behavior? Let me clarify. If you feel the need to express yourself regarding these or any other candidates, I encourage you to go vote and make your voice heard. That is what democracy is about. I'll now proceed to the questions. Using the timer on my phone, I will provide 2 minutes to each candidate. The first question goes to Mr. Alvarez. The question is, why are you running for election for district attorney? 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Doc. First of all, I'd like to thank the young voters for having us here today. I understand we're here in an auditorium that there's a lot of bats out there in the top. Those bats are safe, according to the president of this school, that they were safe. But our kids here are not safe, probably not safe, but we're going to make it safe one day. So With that said, and with that thank you, let me say I have 30 years of experience. I have been doing this type of work for 30 years. I have tried at least more than 350 jury cases in the federal system and in the state court. I have practiced in more than 200 counties in the state of Texas and more than 25 states in the United States. I have gone to practice everywhere in the Court of Appeals in Louisiana, in New York, and you can name it, Florida, Louisiana, you can go on and on. One of the things that I have noticed, and that the decision was made with my family to run, is that we're not tough in crimes. We have left child molesters out without any recourse whatsoever, without answering to anybody. That needs to stop. In my candidacy, in my tenure there, I will make sure that it stops 100%. I will personally try those cases without hesitation to the fullest extent of the law. I will have a zero tolerance for those cases. That cannot be tolerated. My office will always be open. We will have an open
10
policy.
seconds.
My staff will be hired to the most qualified people, people that are not only people that are politically inclined with the candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez, for your answer.
Thank
That
you,
is 2
sir.
minutes.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Escobar, I will re-ask the question. Why are you seeking re-election for district attorney? You may begin.
First of all, Dr. Guerrero, thank you very much for agreeing to moderate this particular event. And I also want to thank the Stark County Young Voters Club for hosting this. I think it's an important event. And so once again, thank you all. I'm running for re-election basically very simple because I enjoy what I do. I've been a prosecutor since the end of 2005. And being a prosecutor is very different than being a criminal defense attorney. Being a prosecutor is about wanting to do justice. And it requires a certain temperament, it requires a certain knowledge of the law. Prosecutors put together cases, we analyze cases, and we have to deal with victims, we have to deal with witnesses, and we have to deal with their testimony, we have to deal with investigators. But more than anything else, we deal with people and we deal in the justice system. And the fact of the matter is that a prosecutor is concerned first with justice and safety of their community. Now, we live here. We have our families who live here. Our children live here. And more than anything else, I am concerned for their safety. Very simple. I'm committed to taking bad people off the streets within the justice system, using the justice system the way we're supposed to, by presenting evidence to do that. No other way. But once again, to say that I'm running for re-election or to answer the question as to why I'm running for re-election is very simple because I enjoy what I do and I enjoy the cause of justice and I enjoy the idea, the challenge of keeping a community safe and the community safe, including in all 3 counties. Thank you.
Thank you. The second question, Mr. Alvarez. What do you feel is the most important function of the district attorney and the district attorney's office?
You're not going to alternate this one?
I prefer not to alternate so that we can stay with the
So you're
same.
just going to respond and then I don't do anything then? I don't think it works that way, okay? I think you got it wrong.
Hold
Sorry,
on.
Doc. But he needs to go and I need to rebut his answer
Let me
too.
check with what the rules
I
with.
think
I'm-
that was one of the things I said, I need rules
Mr.
on
Alvarez.
this debate, but the rules were never given to us. I demanded some rules, and this is what happens when we don't have rules. These books are all entitled rules.
Mr. Alvarez, the question has not been asked.
I understand. Thank you, sir.
Please
Go ahead.
refrain from any further discussion. I spoke with the Stark County voters before this, and I believe we agreed that whoever got the coin toss would go first, and then we seek another, the next candidate will answer the question.
Let's go. Let's
So
go.
the question is,
Let's go.
okay,
Let's go.
Mr.
Ready?
Alvarez,
We're ready.
what do you feel is the most important function of the district attorney and the district attorney's office? Go.
Thank you, sir. One of the main functions and the only really function that is more important than district attorneys to prosecute felony cases, to make sure that those felony cases are prepared to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. One of the ways to do it is to hire good lawyers, good secretaries, good paralegals, good staff in order to do that. Have guidelines, have a standard of how cases need to be tried. Okay, I will implement a intake office in order for that intake office to weed out the cases that we do not need to try. They don't need nothing. Those cases do not need to be in the judicial system at all. Work hand in hand with every law enforcement, especially the federal authorities, the PDs, the sheriff department. I will continue doing that. I will focus 100% of my time to try to solve crimes and prosecute all crimes. Y no política, no va a haber política. Thank you again.
Thank you. Question goes to Mr. Escobar now. What do you feel is the most important function of the district attorney and the district attorney's office?
The most important function of the district attorney's office is to advance the cause of justice. And now I'm going to note that the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure specifically indicates, specifically tells us what our duty is as prosecutors. Our duty is not to seek a conviction, but to see that justice is done. And there's a distinction. There's a difference between just going out and trying to convict everything and everybody that comes along. It's not about just getting a conviction. The cause of justice is two-sided. And yes, we do have to always try to implement guidelines as to what cases we accept or we don't accept. But in the end, every single case is based on evidence that we either have or don't have. Now, many people will say or not say, or who don't understand the criminal justice system, will talk about whether prosecutorial decisions were made or what kind of prosecutorial decisions were made. But in the end, we must make decisions that are based on facts. And our cause is seeking justice. Now, like I said, it's not just about getting convictions. There are times in which there are cases where we will have to say to ourselves, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. Somebody is going to end up being wrongfully prosecuted because there's no evidence, but somebody is trying to push a case and trying to get something done that we are not ready to do and that we should be unwilling to do. So yes, the most important function is not just to convict or to be getting convictions. It is about seeking justice and being able to be in a position to do that. And that means you don't wrongfully convict people, you don't invent evidence where none exists, and you honestly look at cases to see if you can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, or you can even take cases before a grand jury. That is the most important function of a district attorney.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, what is the most important change you would make should you become district attorney?
Again, it bothers me 100%. The child molesters are outside because this district attorney chooses to just release them without any condition, without any convictions. I will process every one of them and let a jury decide their fate, if they're guilty or not. I will create a counseling department for all service of all victims of all counties. The crime victim is only in Stark County. Don't get fooled. There's not a crime victim in Jim County, and there's not a crime victim in Duval County. Omar, you don't have crime victims over there. I mean, installing technology, the most advanced technology there is for courtroom. Install a war room within the department of the DA's office. That needs to be done. Support 100% the law enforcement community by educating them, by sending them to school for investigative crimes, the latest technology to be used to investigate a crime. Have communications with all different type of entities in order for them to succeed in their jobs. And finally, give some more space to the system to work. It cannot be a political agenda. This is not a political agenda. The crimes and the things that happen in this county concerning that this district attorney is not for sale. at all, and it would not be for sale on my clock, I guarantee you that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar, what is the most important change you have done as district attorney?
The most important change that we have done is of course, create a separate entity in and of itself for processing and providing services to crime victims. You know, as an assistant prosecutor, as an assistant district attorney, and some of my prosecutors were also assistant district attorneys, I was there at a time when we would have victims come into our office, and the only contact that we would have with our victims is just preparing for trial and just sort of talk about their testimony and what they were going to do in the court. So you'd have a situation where, for some reason or another, in some way or another, they would just come into our office and we would present them to court, but they didn't even know where the settings were, where the hearings were at. They had no idea of what the judicial system was, had zero idea. And so it struck me even in 2006, 2007, that at some point we had to have services for them, and they had to know more about the judicial system to take care of them and then provide services like psychological counseling. That is what, most importantly, what we have done is provide its own unit to provide group therapy sessions, to keep them informed as to what's going on in court with their cases. And to correct Mr. Alvarez, there is a crime victims, let's say, provider in Duval County that's actually operated through the county attorney's office. And so she has been there for at least 5 years. She began actually under ex-county attorney, Mr. Rocky Carrillo, and she now works for Vanessa, works for Valdemar at this time. So I think that the most important change that we have done is create a unit that has been solely dedicated to crime victims. And there is not one case that Mr. Alvarez can point to us that he knows that there was evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that has been dismissed. There's not one case that he can tell us about.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. Mr. Alvarez, the recent closings of our tax assessor's office have been front page news. How would you have handled this situation?
That is a situation that I don't think should be a question to answer. That case is still in litigation. That case is still pending. That case is still in discovery mode right now. To put it here, it is something that I should not comment because I represent one of them. But I will comment this far, that if I was a district attorney and this would happen, I would sure sincerely think about 100% sending it to the feds, which this case was sent to the feds. The feds, I don't know, and when I said feds, I'm talking about federal authority. The federal authority did not do anything, did not indict all these folks at all. I mean, one of the most intriguing part that I see that they put all this effort into it when all these people that were accused of this situation were all law-abiding citizens to that day. I mean, Omar chose to go arrest people at the school. I will never do that. I will never embarrass a teacher in any way to arrest them at school. I mean, I will never embarrass anybody in front of children whatsoever. I mean, one of the most important part of it, that the tax assessor's office was closed for a couple of weeks, and that's because there's no communication with these DAs and the county judge or the county commissioner. One of the things I would do, county judge, you know what, this is going to go down, this is an investigation going down, you need to be alerted because this office needs to continue doing public service. Mr. Omar Escobar chose not to do none of that. Playing the vuelta, política, 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 no good for the DA's office. I will make sure that I'll take every political ounce of that office out of there.
10 seconds.
It doesn't need to be in that office at all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar, again, dealing with the closings at the tax assessor's office, would you explain to us your version of the situation and how it was handled?
Okay, the investigation actually began in 2012, and it actually began with the auditor's office, and sometime previous to 2012, as a matter of fact. I've said this in public before. The auditor's office began noticing large discrepancies in money that were missing There is some debate about when the county judge's office called the law enforcement or when the auditor's office called law enforcement. I can represent to everybody here that there is not one shred of evidence that we have documented or otherwise indicating that there was any call to law enforcement prior to September of 2012 by anybody. And so there was some I suppose audits that happened, and after that there was also an investigation by DPS where they found that large discrepancies were happening at the I'd say motor vehicle registration. And so the investigations proceeded with DPS alongside with our office and alongside with federal authorities as to state charges. Eventually, state charges were brought, and this is a very simple thing. It's addition and subtraction. You can add up the receipts and you add up the deposits, and if they don't add up, you've got a problem, and that's what the Stark County Auditor did. There's money missing, and now it appears that Mr. Alvarez is here telling us that he's basically defending his client, how he plans to prosecute these cases as a now turn around and be a district attorney is quite strange to us, since he's defending the very people that at this point we seek to prosecute, and that the evidence all indicates, at least in my mind, that there was sufficient probable cause to believe that that happened. So it's addition and subtraction. How you're going to prosecute them is really the biggest question you have, Mr. Alvarez, as you're related to the defendants and you're representing them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, please explain what you believe are the most significant issues in this race and what differentiates you from Mr. Escobar.
Once I become and I'm elected as your district attorney, I cannot handle any cases anymore. If this case is pending, obviously I cannot handle it. So there will be another lawyer, Omar. Come on, you know the rules. But let me answer the question now. I will be tough on crime. There's no question about it. This DA's office is not tough on crime. That's the whole thing about this election. He has no problem with letting people out in any type of situation. I will have a zero tolerance for all child molestation, which he does not have at all. I will be loyal to people. Doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. Omar, not loyal to even to his own DA staff. He has fired 75% of his staff. He has invoked a lot of things like you will not have a job if it wasn't for me, and things like that. That's going on, and his own office manager quit because he won't listen to anybody. Omar only listens to himself. That difference, and the problem comes the experience of 30 years. My experience seeing other prosecutors do their job from day to day. I do handle a lot of cases everywhere else. I see prosecutors a lot better than Omar is, by all means, trying cases in other counties. Right next door to us, Juan Viescas, an assistant, went to school with me, was my roommate in law school. We ended up together. I'm trying cases in the federal and state court. Those are the kind of people that I hang around with. It's important to have those kind of staff at all times. We will not prosecute cases just for political arena. If it was in 2012, this case, the tax assessor, it should have been prosecuted back then, not when the political is in full swings. Sorry, Omar, but you're wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Mr. Escobar, please explain what you believe are the most significant issues in this race and what differentiates you from Mr. Alvarez.
What I think are the most important issues here, yes, we have experience. We both have experience. And the other issue that we have is integrity and character. And so both relate to credibility. So you've got experience and credibility, okay? Experience as being a defense attorney is very different, and I've been both a defense attorney and a prosecutor. And it's very, very different to be a prosecutor because your mindset is different. You are building cases, not trying to tear down cases. And building cases takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of training to be in a courtroom where you're trying to gauge You're trying to prepare cases to present evidence to a jury to convince juries that your version of facts is the correct version of facts, okay? Defense attorney is the opposite. Defense attorney, a defense work is just to try to somehow undermine and just at whatever cost, undermine the prosecutor's case and the witnesses, and it really doesn't matter, you see? And it's very different. A defense attorney does whatever he can to get his client off, you see? And a prosecutor is trying to do the cause of justice. That you have 30 years of defending defendants who have been accused of crimes is of no consequence to being a prosecutor. It's an entirely different mindset. And the other issue is, when I say integrity, credibility, how can a prosecutor, a defense attorney who has been arrested for a DWI, for example, how can I go before a jury to prosecute a DWI case and say, we have to do justice here? The jury's going to say, wait a minute,
10
you got
seconds.
away with it. Or sexual assault cases when, wait a minute, how can we present something to a jury and expect them to do justice when we have been arrested for the same things? We cannot
Thank
do
you,
that
Mr.
credibly.
Escobar.
Thank you.
We're about halfway through the 11 questions right now, and I'd like to take the time to congratulate the audience on their behavior and following the rules, and congratulate the candidates on staying on task and following the rules. I will go on with Mr. Alvarez. Mr. Alvarez, please identify the biggest challenge the district attorney's office faces and describe how you plan to address it.
One of the biggest challenge and that is in the district attorney, and I practice against them almost daily, okay? They are never prepared. Preparation means this. Preparation means this. They will come to the courtroom like that, exactly how he is right now. Do you want somebody to try your cases that is not prepared and just talk and talk and talk about something that happened 30 years ago, 20 years ago? No, you don't. We will handle the cases. Our DAs, our assistant good DAs will be prepared. I will make sure our investigators will be prepared. I will make sure the paralegals, secretaries, and everybody is prepared and doing their job at all times. I must teach the young lawyers with my experience to teach them how to prepare a case. We prepare cases for federal court. We prepare cases for state court on a daily basis. We do not shy away from preparation. Preparation is preparation, Omar. Doesn't matter if you're a defense lawyer or a prosecutor. It must be done so. And that's why I wanted a war room. War rooms are important. War rooms will iron out all the problems, the pros and the cons, the goods and the bad. And we'll be able to do that. And with the latest technology that the DA's office does not have, that needs to be brought to the attention of the Commissioner's Court for them to give us some, or use the forfeiture proceeds to do that. Obviously, we use the forfeiture proceeds for something else. Omar spent $4.5 million on what? Omar, where's the money, Omar? It's not your money, Omar. You owe the county
10 seconds.
$1.5 million, Omar.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar, please identify the biggest challenge the district attorney's office faces and describe how you plan to address it.
Okay, first off, I address this through social media, and I continue to challenge Mr. Alvarez, candidate Alvarez, to show me from the auditor's office where any forfeiture proceeds are owed to the county over the last 3 years. He's not going to because he can't. It's very simple. We can have a big talk, all the talk, and it's just talk and talk, but when it comes to presenting evidence of anything, he's not going to present anything. And now, because an auditor would very simply come in and say, you owe the forfeiture amount this amount of money, or the general fund this amount of money, completely off, doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, what's the biggest challenge? What's the biggest challenge? It's the biggest challenge that we face is the biggest challenge that every prosecutor across the nation faces nowadays. Convincing jurors that sometimes a victim will not have DNA evidence, they're not going to have forensic evidence, yet something happened to them, okay? Right now, our biggest challenge is about convincing jurors who believe in CSI, who believe in all the crime shows, that there's this technology out there that can solve a case within 30 minutes. And this happens across the nation. It's not that way. Our challenge is to continue to educate our investigators and law enforcement at large as to how to investigate cases and shore them up and make them stronger in court, especially sexual assault cases and sexual assault of children cases, because oftentimes all you have is just one witness that has gone through a SANE nurse exam, has gone through forensic testing, but they don't find anything, yet something happened to them. And we have to explain to them, to a jury, it's not just a shouting match, because jurors nowadays, they are quite rightly concerned about convicting somebody without evidence, because we
10
have seen
seconds.
exonerations. But right now, our biggest challenge is to convince jurors about forensic evidence and the need or not need for forensic evidence to support a particular case or
Thank you,
testimony.
Mr. Escobar. Mr. Alvarez, please list the top 3 programs or projects that will be your focus in the upcoming term. Describe why they are important and the funding issues associated with each of the 3 programs.
Number one, the most important part is to make sure that law enforcement have their money. And this comes from the forfeiture proceeds, Omar. It comes to maintain, to repair, to use their equipment, for them to be safe in the streets, to operate their offices, not to spend them in barbecues, not to do things like that, not to spend them on a float, not to build a barbecue pit for $20,000. That's not the way to use the proceeds funds, but to help our law enforcement community. Build the war room that I'm talking about. Advanced technology must be done in order to keep up with society. Society demands the jury trial be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Every person is presumed innocent at all times, but as a prosecutor, you have to overcome that presumption of innocence. And Omar, you have lacked that part, because you have not tried a single case in 3 years that you have been a district attorney. You're just getting a check every month and spending some forfeiture proceeds. To keep the streets safe, that's the problem. That's the problem that it's associated with all law enforcement, with the DA's office, to keep the schools, the city, the counties in a safe place. That needs to be done, and try the cases to the fullest extent of the law. All these fundings will be done through the forfeiture proceeds and our budget. Obviously, the budget is given to the district attorney's office by the commissioner's court. Okay, work hand in hand with the commissioner's court to fund some other things that might be done from time to time. And also look for grants. Grants are out there to enable us to fight crimes at
10
all
seconds.
times. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar, please list the top 3 programs or projects that will be your focus in the upcoming term. Describe why they are important and the funding issues associated with each project.
Okay, I'm going to answer Mr. Alvarez, and then I'm going to go to the question. Just in Starr County alone, I tried the Elias Vasquez case, which you're familiar with, though you didn't try, in which Mr. Vasquez was sent to prison for DWI, intoxication, manslaughter. That one is just one case. And I've tried several cases in Duval County, one of which resulted in a life sentence for a sexual molester, Mr. Alvarez. I've been in the courtroom several times. The last time you were in court, I understand that you got a 38-year sentence against a man for murder who you argued was innocent. So don't tell us about what we can or can't do or what we shouldn't or shouldn't have done. I've been in the courtroom and I've tried cases. The fact is that you just never have any facts to back up anything. 3 things, 3 projects that we have. Crime Victims Unit, we've got to continue. We've got to focus on victims. Every DA's office has to do it. Cold Case Unit. Cold Case Unit requires going back, getting investigators that are highly trained in opening cases that have been unsolved. That's very important because we have families and victims that want some sort of justice. It's not easy. It's not, I mean, we know that. We have to be realistic, but we do have to have, I think we do need a cold crimes unit that will be able to help us out solve crimes, and of course a white collar crime unit of some kind that would be able to look at public theft especially. I think those things have to happen. Those are the 3 things that I think are major issues for for our office and for pretty much, I would say, any district attorney's office, but specifically for the 229th District Attorney's Office. Okay?
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, what are your strategies to improve caseload processing and increase conviction rates within the DA's office?
Number one, I keep talking about the intake department that needs to be created. That intake department weeds out the cases that do not need to be in the process, in the judicial process at all. Review the jury list or the jail list at all times, every day. We need to implement what I had in 1998 when I was a judge, a county court of law judge. I implemented the fast track back then. Fast track exists in the federal system, or Omar, you never practiced before, and you don't know what it is to handle those cases at all. Number two, those fast tracks are also implemented just last week in Hidalgo County. Those are systems that are designed to get the non-violent criminals out of the jails, where the taxpayers do not need to pay anywhere between $54 and $34 a day to keep them housed, to keep their stays there at the jails. We need to make sure that we move them wherever they need to be moved, either to drug treatment facilities or to probation or whatnot. One of the other things that is more important is to get the county court of law judge, Judge Molina, to hear some arraignments, to hear some pleas. We do that in the federal system. Judge Ormsby, Judge Ramos, take the load off from Judge Hinojosa, Judge Crane, and Judge Alvarez in federal system in McAllen. Claiborne County and Nueces County do the same thing. They use their county court of law to help with the caseload in order to move the cases at all times. We will continue to improve the docket the way I did it when I was a county court of law judge. I had my cases at 100 cases per month. There was no more than 100 cases pending in my
10 seconds.
in my tenure there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar, what are your strategies to improve caseload processing and increase conviction rates within the district attorney's office?
Well, as far as to address the issue at intake or persons who are jailed, it may come as news to Mr. Alvarez, but it's certainly been in the news more than once about our policy of pre-indictment docket. For more than, I'd say, at least 6 months to close to a year, our attorneys have been going through the jail list and setting cases up on the pre-indictment docket in the 229th and 381st. It would come as a surprise to many defense attorneys who have pled out defendants who are in jail before indictment that we don't have a system when we've had a system for at least 6 months to closer to a year as far as pre-indictment matters are concerned, so that they don't sit in jail waiting for indictment. To say that we don't have that is, of course, misses the mark completely. And we'll continue to do that, continue to train our investigators, train our officers to be able to solidify our cases, to continue to put the cases together so that we have a smoother transition before indictment and then after indictment. But it's about training, and it's about keeping that jail list up to date, making sure that we've got enough evidence to present to a grand jury and moving those cases along. But we can even do that, and we've been doing it before indictment. We've been doing it for at least a year now.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, what additional resources are needed for the DA's office from county government?
Thank you, Doc. Let me, I did not get to too many, but I'm going to use some of this for increase the conviction within the DA's office. It is prepare. It is ready, be ready. Experience. That's what it means for those convictions to be upgraded a lot, to make sure we get convictions at all times. What we need now to answer this question, what we need is office space to do that. Same war room, I'm telling you. I got a war room in my own office. I didn't bring any cheerleaders. I only have my wife here with me. She can attest to you that the only war room is the war room I use. I digest cases there. I put them apart. I put them back together, pull them back apart, and pull them back together until I make sure that everything is reviewed 100% to my satisfaction. Again, we talk about the fast track. We talk about cases that are violence. We need to ask the Commissioners Court to give us some more space for that, and the government needs to respond to that. We need a conference room for depositions. We need we need that conference room in order to prepare the witnesses at all times. Also, the storage, I go to the DA's office, they got files stored everywhere. We can use some other room for storing those files that are closed already. And we'll talk about a little bit more about white-collar crimes. We need a department within that. That is very sensitive issues, but we'll discuss it in a little while because there's another question coming up. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar, what additional resources are needed for the District Attorney's Office from the county government?
So we have to understand that, to put it in perspective, I'll put it to you this way. When I took office in 2013, the funding from the general fund, that is taxpayer money, was somewhere around $380,000 to $390,000. Okay, compare that to just simply take any office. Maybe the county judge's office was closer to $600,000. To run the entire justice system, as far as the felony are concerned, that might be able to get you a couple of assistants and a couple of attorneys, and maybe a little bit of equipment. So obviously you want more regular funding rather than to go and hunt grants, which my office has done quite successfully. Now we're running at least 5 different grants, and we've obtained significant grants, at least 2 significant grants during my term, one of them being the VOCA grant, which is Crime Victims Grant. That's the grant that allows us to do crime victim services. But certainly additional funding for investigators and for training, specifically for training investigators, would help us out a lot. If the county could help us out, I would probably think that the most important thing that they could do is also help provide more funding probably to the Sheriff's Department and other county agencies, especially the Sheriff's Department, to be able to fund training for their investigators, because the key to strong cases is really the investigation. Cases are only as strong as the investigations that we have. You don't have a good investigation, you don't have a good case. And if we had resources to be able to provide a lot more training, hiring personnel, but training personnel, that would help us out go a lot further in prosecuting these cases in court.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, what are your strategies to combat white-collar crime within Starr County, and what are your strategies to combat identity theft and internet crimes?
I'm going to need like 5 minutes to answer that question, Doctor.
You've got 2 minutes.
All right, let me tell you, going back to Omar's comment a while ago that the hardest thing to get convictions is to convince the jury. Now he's blaming the juries, that the juries are the problems. Can you believe that? Incredible, incredible. But that's a mentality. To fight white-collar crimes means to make a special department, a special type of crimes, to get a prosecutor to just do that, to get an investigator, to get a secretary, to get a computer that is not connected with any other computer. So information will not be abstracted from that computer at all. And tell the general public what it is. I mean, identity theft is just what you're doing. I mean, you got to secure your own personal records at all times. Watch your wallet. Don't let it go anywhere. Limit your loads. Don't get your Social Security where you might be lose it somewhere and somebody might use it. Protect your family Social Security numbers at all times. Use passwords and change your password regularly at all times. If you receive notice from any company that they have stolen your information, make sure you go to Social Security and advise them, because those are the people that need to be known. Also, there's a lot of telecommunication theft at all times. And I can hear a bat out there. Oh, wow.
Mr. Alvarez, please stick to the questions.
I'm just saying, there's some bats out there.
That doesn't concern the question I asked.
I got distracted, but that's okay. And educate people with the internet crimes. Let me tell you, Omar had a case in Duval County that it was a child pornography case. The feds took it away from you, Omar,
10 seconds.
because you could not handle that case, and they took it to Corpus Christi and tried that case in Corpus Christi. That case is pending right now, Omar.
Thank you.
And here's the copies, Omar.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Escobar, what are your strategies to combat white-collar crime within Stark County? And what are your strategies to combat identity theft and internet crimes?
Sure. Whenever you're dealing with internet crimes, you actually need people who are highly trained to be able to handle IP tracking, for example, or identification of, or forensic testing of hard drives, forensic imaging of hard drives. For example, if you're going to get a search warrant for an individual, let's say you locate the person via IP address or via any kind of protocol that you can find. There are certain protocols, certain steps that you have to take to be able to secure the evidence, and evidence handling in computer crimes is very, very different. You have to know what you're doing, and you need specialized training to do that. I do have one investigator who has specialized training, which is Mr. Ricardo Carrillo out of Duval County, and actually he's one of the persons that worked on the case that Mr. Alvarez is talking about, and it's very simple. Federal authorities are very different than state authorities. Federal authorities have a very aggressive pornography prosecution system, and the reason is because their laws are very specific in the sentencing. In Texas, sentences are rendered by juries, okay? And or the defendant can choose a judge or a jury. In the federal system, sentences are handed down by judges based on sentencing guidelines. And with the federal authorities, when a case is prosecuted, for example, on child pornography, each image can carry a sentence, and the sentences can be very severe and very harsh. Prosecution on the federal side with our federal partners, reaching out to our federal partners will yield, in our estimation, in our view, probably heavier sentences, and that's why we've done that working with our partners. There is an internet crimes division from the Attorney General's office where we can begin to work with, which we have done. And so reaching out to federal and local partners, and especially training investigators to do this, will go a long way towards dealing with these matters.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. This is the last question from me. Mr. Alvarez, what do you plan to do to make sure your office is open to assist all citizens and enforce all laws?
Just let me go back to the case that the child pornography case in Duval County. The district attorney's office, let the child images out against violation against the Article 3915. Can you imagine that? That office let those images out. Incredible. Not to be done at all. Now we are people that will have an open door policy at all times to make sure that the office will be assisting all peoples of life. I have been honest with all my opposing counsels, with every prosecutor. I have no complaints by any judge that I have ever been late or not been in court prepared. I am always prepared. I am prepared today. I will be prepared tomorrow. I mean, I will wake up and I will study the situation for the day and the weeks to come. I will always represent my clients to the best of my ability. I still maintain good standing, Omar, in the bar, on the federal bar and the state bar for 30 years. Never had any problems with them. Finally, I will sure do know what it is to honor God, to honor church, to honor family. I will always be in peace within myself, because I don't have to talk somebody down in their own personal life to get your agenda going in politics. I will never do that, and I chose not to do that with you, Omar, because you got a lot of laundry in the closet, and it's dirty. But I choose not to do that at all. And I respect that, because your mom might be here and your wife is here, and I will never embarrass them in front of anybody.
10 seconds.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar,
Yes.
what do you plan to do to make sure that your office is open to assist all citizens and enforce all laws?
No, well, the answer to the question is we will continue to do so. We do that now. And so one thing that we have to understand is that as prosecutors, we represent the state of Texas. Our client is the state of Texas. And so we continue to allow persons to come to our office, but we are careful to make sure that it's not defendants that are just showing up, because we are prosecutors. And so what may be said by a defendant to a prosecutor, many times a defendant, they think it's easy to come and say, well, I'm just going to go talk to the prosecutor. Let's see if we can resolve this thing without legal counsel. And they might say something that incriminates them. So we always have to say, wait a minute, do you have an attorney? Because our system requires that anybody who's accused of a crime must have an attorney representing them. We cannot just come in and have a policy supposedly where any defendant or any person accused of a crime can just show up without legal counsel and start talking about their case, because that would mean the prosecutors were taking advantage of persons, defendants, and possibly violating their rights. We always have to make sure that we are respecting persons' rights, but we always deal with people when they come to our office. We can talk to them about those things that are important to them. And most of the time, we've got cases, and we're careful to make sure that we can discuss them or not discuss them. If we can't discuss them, we let them know. If we can discuss them, we talk to them. So we will continue to do what we have always done, is allow persons to come in, talk about their cases, but by the same token, always understand that we have responsibilities, that we have professional responsibilities that we have to adhere to, and making sure that we also preserve the rights of those persons who are accused, to make sure that they don't they don't incriminate themselves in the process of just walking in an open office.
10 seconds.
So we continue to do what we've always done, is continue to talk to people and allow people to talk to our office, discuss with our office their concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. At this moment, I'd like to invite any members of the audience who have a question pertinent to the race to please raise their hands.
We will accept 3 questions, but no personal questions.
Exactly, no personal questions.
And they'll be
and
able to rebuttal. They'll be able to rebuttal
for,
each question.
okay, each question. Okay, that's fine. Any students, I'd like to concentrate in the middle section. Anybody with a question, please raise your hand. Could you come up, please, gentlemen in the third row? The question will be answered. Let me go back to the Starr County voters. You want the question asked, and then you want... Okay. So let's ask the question in the same order to Mr. Escobar first. I'm sorry, Mr. Alvarez.
Well, as you may know, K2 or synthetic marijuana is a problem in our community.
Young man, I'm going to have to ask you to speak just a little bit louder.
Get closer to the mic,
I'm 55
please.
years old.
As you may know, K2 or synthetic marijuana is a problem in our community. What are you willing to do to help stop this problem?
It is a big problem in our community. We have to educate our children to do that. I'm not an expert what chemicals are used, how you make it together to smoke it. I have no idea. If I see it right now, I wouldn't tell you that that's what it is. But I know that we can hire, through the crime victims, through the forfeiture proceeds, we can hire people that are experts in the K2 and come to schools and talk about it. For a lawyer to go to school and try to tell children what it is, we're not experts. We are experts in the law. We're experts in trying cases, in prosecuting, not in... If somebody is caught or tested positive in my clock, I guarantee you they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and especially if that person was in a wreck and created seriously injuries to another one, or murder or kill somebody while under the K2. I will prosecute those cases again to the fullest extent. I hope I answered your question, young man.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Mr. Escobar, if you'd like to respond to that?
Yes, I've been saying this for over a year and a half, closer to 2 years now, I suppose. that I consider the use of synthetic drugs the most dangerous of drugs, and the biggest problem that we have right now in Stark County, and probably also in Duval County, where we see a rise in the use of synthetic drugs. The key is demand reduction, and I think that it's pretty clear that we have already been into the school districts. We've tried to address these issues because it's an emergent issue. There are not a lot of resources that are out there as far as programs, educational programs about K2, so we're trying to catch up and to inform the public about what these drugs do. Part of the problem is that people call it synthetic marijuana. It's not marijuana. These are synthetic drugs. And so while we may be experts in the law, some of us, or may understand the law, it doesn't prohibit us from going into schools, into the 4th, 5th, 6th grade classrooms, and which are very important, and high school classrooms across Stark County, and talk about what these substances do. Our attorneys have been doing it, our investigators have been doing it, but you don't need any particular expertise in the area to be able to explain the effects of synthetic drugs. We have a basic understanding of how these chemicals work, what they interfere with, and what the total effects are to the human brain.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. Another question from the middle section. Any students who would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. I guess if you stand up, that's okay. Also.
My name is Amanda Hinojosa, and I'm from Roma High School. How can you help inform the community about the problems associated with sexting among teenagers?
You want for me to answer the texting question, right?
Could you repeat the question a little bit
A
louder?
little bit louder.
How can you help inform the community about the problems associated with sexting among teenagers?
I don't know if the DA has enough resources to go through every school and every entity to try to give counseling, not to text nude pictures, things like that, to teens. I think I would leave it up to the counselors at schools. They're better prepared than we are as lawyers. Remember, the function of the district attorney's office is to prosecute all felony cases to the fullest extent of the law. Make sure that those folks that are committing crimes as child molesters do not walk next to my kids, next to your kids, next to any child that be molested later on. That is the biggest function. I mean, we try to assist whenever they ask the district attorney to do so, but in texting, we have to stop that because it's hurting people. This fake profiling on social media is way out of control. It falls pretty much in the same area that you're talking about, texting, teen texting and so forth. It needs to be stopped. How do we develop the tools to do it? It's in the process because the federal have not been able to develop it, but they're working on it. Because I've tried cases like the cases in child pornography. I tried those cases in federal court. I know how to try those cases. Omar, you do not know how to try those cases, Omar. And I have done that time and time again, okay? But texting is important for teens to know the limits of texting.
10
Tell your
seconds.
parents to limit or to tell you to talk about that with you. Thank you, young lady.
Thank you. And Mr. Escobar, same question about sexting.
You know, I think when it comes to that particular issue, you do need, I think the best thing that could happen is probably to use counseling resources or therapists at some point or another, along in I would say, next to or in collaboration with counseling departments in each of the schools to talk to students about what sexting actually is amongst teenagers and why it's wrong. But more importantly, I think that what has to happen is that within the school districts, there has to be a dialogue, quite honestly, between not just teenagers, and it can be of any age, but there has to be a dialogue between counselors, law enforcement personnel, educators, and parents. And a district attorney, the only thing that we could be able to do is possibly bring in experts to come together to have workshops at school districts with counselors, with educators, and with parents, call them together and say, okay, this is what's going on, this is a problem because, and then we go on and we talk about what the issues are, why there's violations of the law, what the dangers are, and the seriousness of and the consequences that can happen, of course, with these issues. That is with sexting amongst teenagers. So really, what a DA can do is lead a collaboration between counselors, educators, and parents as to address this issue really the most effective way possible. Okay.
Thank you. The first gentleman that spoke was also from Roma High School. I'd like to say that. Thank you. Any other questions? The lady in pink.
My name is Julissa Olivares, and I'm from Roma High School. My question is, how would you address the issue of illegal immigrants in our community?
You're gonna have to repeat that, young lady.
Of course.
Do it a little bit slower for me, okay?
Okay. How would you address the issue of illegal immigrants in our community?
Still don't understand your
How
question.
do you address the issue of illegal immigrants in our community,
Thank you.
correct? Thank you.
I got your question now. Appreciate it. Illegal immigrant is a problem, okay, that is associated with our culture. Our culture is designed where people go back and forth to Mexico. We have our roots in Mexico. We do have relatives in Mexico. Some of those illegals, they think they can be here, okay? And later on, after this debate, there are some files in here that somebody has been getting paid, that's an illegal alien, getting paid by Omar Escobar. It's in there. I'd like for you to see it later on, but I'm not going to talk about it. It is a problem that we cannot give them status here. I mean, I would not go as far as Trump has gone to say that they're not welcome. They're welcome here as long as they have their proper documents. They have to get permission from the Homeland Security personnel in order for them to understand that we have rules. We have society that is designed by rules. You just can't come in here, all right? I thank you for your question. Good question, young lady.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Mr. Escobar, same question about illegal immigration.
Yeah, the issue of illegal immigration is, of course, something that we've been dealing with so as a country, or dialogue as a country, for several years now. What has come through for us as state authorities is that in one case or another, or one point or another, they've tried to address through state laws, the use of state laws, unlawful transport or different issues where people try to, let's say, transport illegal aliens in one way or another and address it in a way that's more of smuggling. What's coming through and what becomes a much more difficult issue now is that the state authorities, state laws, are preempted by federal law as far as dealing with illegal immigration. And so state authorities very often have the difficulty of having to, now we begin to see that have a difficulty of having to deal with preemption of laws. There is unlawful transport, but it has to do with now transporting for a person for pecuniary gain, in other words, for pay and paying. So right now we do have laws that deal, but they don't specifically deal with illegal immigration because those laws are preempted specifically by federal authorities and federal law. And so at this point, it's just a question of continuing, I would say, dialogue with federal authorities, but they're the ones that have the exclusive authority to deal with illegal immigration. We can deal with it on a state basis, but we can't deal with it directly with state law under state law because we simply don't have the authority to do that.
Thank you. This ends a section of questions for the candidates. They will each be given 2 minutes for a closing statement, and then I will give myself unlimited time for a closing statement. Mr. Alvarez, you have 2 minutes for a closing statement.
Doc, I appreciate you being the moderator today. To all the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for being here. I came by myself, accompanied by my wife. I came to deliver a message. I think the message is delivered. There is the change. The change that has to be done, but not the change that happened 2 years ago or so. The change is with the district attorney's office alone, nothing else. There is no excuse. There's a book that I use in my office every day, and I have it, and I have had it for over 20 years. This book sits in my desk every day. Do not look for an excuse to prosecute a case. Do not look for a jury that the juries are returning not guilty verdicts. Always, always be prepared in whatever you do. It doesn't matter if you're the students. It doesn't matter what class you are in. You have to do your work. There's no excuse not to do it. We like to blame people. We like to say, pues aquel, that person over there. I have never looked for any excuse from no one, and I would choose not to do that. In 30 years of practice, I have never told anybody that I lost a case because I was not prepared. I have prepared my cases. I prepared my Court of Appeal cases. I write my own briefs. This district attorney has to hire somebody to write their briefs because they do not know how to write a brief. As a matter of fact, the first assistant prosecutor by the name of Marty Garcia, the Court of Appeals in San Antonio a few months ago, told her that she could not even prove a divorce case. A divorce case, she could not even prove it. Conte más una causa de murder case, una causa de molestation. They're not prepared to handle it. They have no experience.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar, you have 2 minutes for a closing statement.
Being a district attorney is more than just talking or saying what you're going to do. I find it interesting that my opponent never saw anything wrong with the previous district attorney's office, thought everything was going fine because he didn't decide to run against the previous district attorney. What I see and what I believe is that it's not my opponent is running for district attorney because he's running really against Omar, not to run to be district attorney. And there's a distinction when you're running to get somebody out of office rather than actually take an office and take on a responsibility. To be able to take on the awesome responsibility of a district attorney, of a district attorney's office, you have to be willing to understand that the community needs you to be able to put your effort into prosecuting cases, but into the cause of justice. And it's not just about trying to get a conviction at every turn. It's about doing justice, and sometimes that means prosecuting cases, and sometimes that means not prosecuting cases. And we must believe, we must understand that there are responsibilities to this office, and heavy responsibilities. These are responsibilities that I have voluntarily taken because I know I've been there before since 2005. I'm running for re-election because I believe in what we do, and we are effective, or we are very effective at what we do, and we will continue to be effective at what we do, but more importantly, because I care about our community. I have a young daughter that lives here. For some way or for some person to tell us, you want to let sexual offenders go when I have my own child that lives here is completely ridiculous. It is a ridiculous charge that can't be backed up at all. We have family members here, I have family members here, I have relatives here. And the fact is that we will continue to do what we need to do, and I'm running for re-election because I believe in what we do, and I believe in this cause.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. Before we end, and I turn it back to the Starr County Voters Association, I want to thank everyone for being civil. I was a little hesitant at the beginning using the word debate. more comfortable with discussion, with conversation, and I think that's what was achieved today. I want to thank both candidates for being very civil, following the rules, answering the questions. I'd also like to say, I'm the one in charge of this building. You are safe, the kids are safe in here. I assure you that I do my best to ensure safety of all kids. And finally, before we leave, I need for everyone to do something. Head over to Roma High School after this. There is a great dance sponsored by our Roma High School Conjunto Los Cardenales. I expect to see you there. It'll be $7 at the door. Tell them I sent you. They might give you a special discount, maybe. But I invite everyone to join us at Roma High School. The dance is still going on, a fantastic group. And now I turn it back to Stark County voters.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, for closing remarks, we have our student organization secretary, Ms. Kimberly Lopez.
Thank you, Brian. Here's the ugly truth. According to the Secretary of State, in 2014, there were 30,198 registered voters, and only 5,185 voted. We have a really low voting rate. This is why Stark County hasn't improved. Our voices are not being heard out loud. Stark County is known as the poorest of the poor in Texas. Something is fundamentally wrong, and that needs to end. To the young people of Stark County, your vote is the first step for a change. Our older generations are struggling. Their voices, their concerns are not being heard. It is time to stand up together and let our own voice be heard around the state. That yes, we can improve our county. Yes, we can get funding for our streets. We can change the thought process that people have about the beautiful county. And everything will start once we step on that voting poll. You can be an office clerk, a store cashier, a restaurant worker, a teacher, a student, a businessman or woman, a doctor or a farmer. Your vote matters. This time, we won't give excuses why we don't vote, and this time we're going to give reasons why we're voting. It is up to us to make a change. It is up to us to go and vote. So let's vote. On behalf of our advisor, Mr. Ferry McMillan, and our members, we would like to present a token of appreciation to Dr. Adrian Guerra, Performing Arts Director, Mr. J.M. Chuy Alvarez, and District Attorney, Mr. Omar Escobar. Also, extending a very special thanks to Roma High School JROTC, Pastor Ricardo Peña, Noemi Vela, and to each and every one of you who attended the event. This concludes tonight's event. Again, thank you and have a great night.